Open your closet on a winter morning. You grab a jacket, maybe complain that the room feels cold, maybe turn the heat up one more notch. Now imagine all of that disappears. No zipper, no thermostat, no dry socks, no hot shower waiting when things get uncomfortable. Just you, your modern instincts, and a plane of wind-packed snow at 20 degrees below zero. Welcome to the 5-minute test. Not the movie version of the Ice Age, where everyone looks dramatic in perfect fur and somehow has time for emotional speeches. I mean the real one, the kind of cold that does not care how motivated you are. Here's the brutal truth. You probably would not die in exactly 5 minutes, but in those first 5 minutes, you would make the decisions that decide whether you are already dead. And most modern people would fail almost immediately, not because they are weak, but because they have been trained by comfort to misunderstand cold. The first myth to kill you is the Hollywood myth. The Ice Age was not one endless snow globe full of easy bonfires and conveniently placed mammoths. Much of it was cold, dry, windy grassland. In some regions, the temperature could sit far below freezing, with wind stripping heat faster than still air ever could. There were no thick log cabins waiting over the next hill. There were long distances, exposed ground, and very little room for error. In that world, the real predator was not the saber-toothed cat. It was heat loss. Your body is a furnace that runs absurdly hot for an animal made mostly of water. To stay alive, it has to keep your core temperature in a very narrow range. Drop that core only a few degrees and your hands stop working properly. Your judgment gets weird. Your speech slows, keep dropping, and the machinery starts shutting down. That is hypothermia, and it is not dramatic. It is administrative. Your body simply begins closing departments. So here is deadly mistake number 1. You move too hard, too fast, too early. A modern person dropped into the cold tends to panic and start doing heroic nonsense. Running, stomping, sweating inside whatever clothes they have. That is a disaster. Sweat is wonderful in summer and treason in winter. The moment your clothing gets damp, it starts stealing heat through evaporation. Water conducts heat far better than air. So the moisture your body produced to save you from overheating becomes the reason you cool down dangerously fast once you stop moving. This is one reason real cold weather cultures did not dress like fantasy barbarians with bare arms and stylish fur capes. Archaeology and experimental research suggest that fitted clothing was one of humanity's most important survival technologies, not just fur thrown over the shoulders, tailored layers, hoods, mittens, leg coverings, footwear packed with insulating material. Bone needles with eyes appeared tens of thousands of years ago, and that tiny invention may have mattered more in the cold than many weapons did. A loose hide makes you look fierce on a poster. A sewn parka keeps you alive. If you walked into the Ice Age wearing a fashionable movie outfit, you would become a cautionary tale before lunch. Deadly mistake number 2 is even more intuitive and even more dangerous. You prioritize fire before shelter. Modern people love the idea of fire because fire feels like control. But in deep cold, an exposed fire without insulation is just a bright little argument against the wind. If you are standing in open air, losing heat from every direction, a flame helps only the surface facing it. Your back is still freezing. The ground is still draining heat through your feet. The wind is still carrying warmth away faster than you can replace it. Ice Age survival was logistics. First block the wind, then get off the ground, then trap air around the body, then feed the fire. Snow can be shaped into a windbreak. Brush, hide, bone, and earth can reduce exposure. Even a shallow depression lined with dry grass can matter because trapped air is insulation and exposed skin is a liability. This is why experienced winter survivors think like engineers, not action heroes. They ask what is stealing heat, where, and how fast. The correct answer is usually not run around until a miracle happens. And there is another ugly detail. Fire is expensive. You need dry fuel. In a glacial landscape, that may mean shrubs, driftwood, old dung, or carefully conserved embers. If your fingers are already numb, fine motor control starts disappearing. Suddenly making sparks or maintaining a flame is no longer a rugged little hobby. It is surgery with frozen hands. Meanwhile, your body is burning through calories just to stay warm. Estimates for people living in severe cold can rise to several thousand calories a day, sometimes well above modern average needs, especially with heavy physical work. Cold does not merely chill you. It sends you an invoice. Deadly mistake number 3 is the most modern one of all. You think survival is an individual test. It was not. The greatest Ice Age technology was not a spear. It was other people. This is where the lone wolf fantasy collapses. A single human in a glacial environment has to find shelter, maintain fire, locate water, avoid injury, monitor weather, process food, and stay awake enough to notice danger. A group can divide those tasks. A group shares body heat, knowledge, labor, and memory. One person knows where the herd crossed last season. Another knows which moss stays driest. Another protects the embers. Another repairs boots. If one person is injured, the group carries them through the bad days. Archaeology keeps reminding us that prehistoric humans were not simply enduring nature with clenched teeth. They were building social systems against it. Even the food problem was more complicated than most people imagine. Snow is not a water strategy. Eating it lowers body temperature and forces your body to waste heat, melting it. Hunting is not immediate either. Large game meant planning, tools, cooperation, and butchery. Meat then had to be shared, dried, frozen, rendered, or guarded. Fat was precious because fat is dense energy, exactly what a cold body wants. Lean meat alone can fail you. Protein helps build tissue, but in brutal winter, the body craves fuel it can burn. That is why survival was never just about courage. It was about systems, and the science backs the story. Biological studies of cold stress show that wind and wetness accelerate heat loss dramatically. Experimental work on traditional clothing systems shows that properly fitted fur garments can protect in extreme cold far better than loose wraps. Research on body lice even suggests that habitual clothing has deep prehistoric roots, because specialized lice evolved when humans began wearing garments regularly. In plain English, our ancestors did not survive the cold by being naturally tougher than us. They survived because they designed around it. That may be the most humbling part of this whole test. The Ice Age does not reveal that modern humans are soft. It reveals that human survival has always depended on invisible infrastructure. Knowledge passed down, needles carved from bone, dry tinder saved from yesterday, a camp arranged to block wind, a grandmother who knows where shelter sits in the dark. Strip away those things, and even a healthy modern adult becomes fragile very, very quickly. So if you failed this 5-minute test, the problem would not be that you lacked grit. The problem would be that you inherited comfort without inheriting the manual. Our ancestors wrote that manual in scars, ash, sinew, and memory. And that brings us back to your warm room, your coat rack, your kitchen, your ordinary life. Which of these 3 mistakes do you think would kill you first? Sweating through your clothes, chasing fire before shelter, or trying to survive alone? Be honest. Because in the Ice Age, honesty was a survival skill too.